Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of our little revision series. I believe this is episode 7. I might have said 7 in the last video, but numbers are hard, so it is what it is. Today, we are going to talk about the emergence of authoritarian states, methods used to establish authoritarian states, persuasion and coercion, the role of leaders, ideology, the use of force, and propaganda for Fidel Castro. Let's get right into it. Use of force. This is a big one. If you have to compare and contrast, if they're going to ask you to talk about two leaders or two states, I think this is the one that you have to go with because this is the one for one comparison with Adolf Hitler. Both of them have failed coups, right? Failed putsches in Hitler's case, but a coup in Castro's case. And this is the attack on Moncada barracks in July of 19. That says 2953. It is not in 2953. It's in 1953. And I'm sure you'll love that mistake there. The goal here was to take out the Batista regime early on before it could really consolidate his own power, right? So Batista has his coup in 52. This is Fidel Castro's first attempt at taking him out. It fails miserably, right? It wasn't even a plan. It was just go take over these barracks, take their guns, and kind of move on with that. It wasn't well established. It wasn't well thought out. This is led by Fidel and Raul. Many of the supporters of this movement are going to be killed. Those of whom aren't killed are going to be arrested, and Castro and Raul are going to be amongst those who are arrested. Role of leaders. I think I might have to move my face here a little bit. Hello. All right. Now and do this. Here we go. So the role of the leader, again, this is a really prominent one when it comes to Fidel Castro. He's a pretty big part of his own rise to power, right? He's born in Oriente province to a family of moderate wealth, right? He's going to attend. I told a little story. I was a really successful baseball player, and there are rumors that the Yankees were trying to draft him, whatever. He attended Havana Law. And his goal very early on was he wanted to represent the downtrodden, right? He knew what his country looked like in terms of the poor. He knew what Cubans were facing, and he didn't want that to be the reality. While he's at Havana Law, he's going to join the Orthodox Party in the late 1940s. He's going to plan to run for a seat in the legislative body of Cuba in the election of 52, but that election never happened. So again, he got like that progression of Castro. He realizes the only way to make change is through studying law. Then he realizes the only way to make change is to make the law. And then he's going to kind of realize the only way to make change is by breaking the law, right? So that's kind of the progression of Fidel Castro here. During the Moncada barracks kind of trial, he gives the "History Will Absolve Me" speech, which is one of the more famous speeches in the 20th century. The whole idea there is that history will forgive him because Batista is the real bad guy in this situation. He gives some ideas in that speech that he promotes the idea of land distribution as well as free access to healthcare and education. And that's going to make him a very, very, very popular political person, especially amongst Cubans and Black Cubans. He's going to be sentenced to 15 years, but he's granted amnesty after 2 years. Batista kind of has to show that he's letting up reins a little bit because his totalitarian rule was particularly brutal, and Castro kind of gets freed after 2 years along with his brother Raul. Can't talk about Cuban Revolution and Castro without talking about Che. He is going to meet Fidel in Mexico. Che's going to be the person that solidifies the M26-7 movement. Che hates the United States, right? Che is the one that really, you're going to see this later on in the historiography part of this, probably the last episode of this little mini thing on Castro. he's in Guatemala when the CIA overthrows the elected officials there, right? He hates the United States. He's the one who calls the United States imperialist. He's the one who wants to rid the United States rule over Latin America, South America, Central America. So Che is really what's going to drive a lot of this revolutionary ideology forward. He's the one that's going to emphasize the guerrilla tactics when the revolution starts to get fought, and he's the one who helps plan and execute the attack using the Grandma yacht. Role of ideology, this is a super complex part of it, right? If it were me, I'd maybe try to stay away from this if I'm writing it, because I think it could get a little bit yucky to try and articulate your thoughts clearly here. Castro is a nationalist, right? Castro is not a Marxist Leninist, or at least my belief in this whole thing. He's not a Marxist Leninist until he comes to power. And 60 and 61 is his first inklings of Marxist Leninist ideology. He's a nationalist, right? He wants an independent Cuba. He wants a better Cuba for the Cuban people. He is anti-imperialist. He's anti-American. He's pro-Cuban, right? That's what the Cuban Revolution is, and that's not only his thinking in words, that's also Che's thinking in words there. He's heavily influenced early on by Jose Marti, who is, by many approximations, the father of Cuban nationalism, who says many of the same things that I just said about making Cuba a better place for Cubans, right? Castro, again, like I said, his Marxist-Leninist ideology does not come around until later on in the Cuban Revolution. After he comes to power, that's when he starts to gravitate towards those ideas. Che is the Marxist-Leninist from the get-go, and many believe that Che is going to be the one that kind of inspires Fidel to take on some of those Marxist-Leninist ideas. You could say that Castro was a socialist early on, but you can't really make the claim that he was a communist. Persuasion and Coercion, right? Castro's a pretty persuasive dude, right? Really gifted public speaker, really gifted orator, really just, again, I told you, everything he did, he was a leader of, right? He's a naturally gifted leader. And so the persuasion techniques are going to be kind of clear and apparent here. Propaganda is going to be a big part of the Cuban Revolution, right? It's not propaganda from Castro administered to everyone else. It's propaganda by everyone else about Castro, right? That's going to be the difference in persuasion between Hitler and Castro. It's this top-down versus grassroots method of propaganda in emergence, right? In consolidation, both are going to use a top-down methodology. In emergence, it's very different. You have street artists, you've got the poor class in the mountains of the Sierra Maestra, who are all going to see Castro in a positive light and kind of fall in love with what he stands for and who he is. In 1957, CBS News does an expose on Cuba's jungle fighters, and again, paints Castro as the good guy in this situation. He's far less corrupt, he's far less evil than the military dictator that was Batista, right? El Cubano Libre is going to be a paper that's set up by Che. That is a little bit more of that top-down type of propaganda. It's a little bit more Che than it is Castro. There is methods of top-down propaganda, but again, a lot of it is this grassroots propaganda of people in the mountains and people in the city articulating their feelings about Fidel Castro. Radio Rebelde is another use of persuasion, right? That's that radio program. And again, that graffiti art in the cities, that bright, vibrant, against the grain Latin American art in the city centers like Havana. That's it for this episode. We're going to pick back up with consolidation and maintenance of power in episode 8. Again, I hope these are helping. Let me know if I should change anything, or let me know if these are working, and I'll see you in the next episode.